Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. I've been kind of missing for a few weeks, and I think this channel I'm going to post probably a bit less frequently and dial down from 2 videos a week to 1 video a week. With spring, summer coming, I've just been really busy. I've been taking up a lot of hobbies outside of Booktube in my personal life, like dancing. I've picked up running and mileage, and I just don't think I have the time to read as much. But you know what? I'll just post whenever I finish a book, and I'll try to do my best. I always appreciate you guys always supporting me and watching me, and we'll see where this channel goes. Today, I'm reviewing Other People's Clothes by Calla Henkel. This was part of my in-person book club in Calgary, and I gave this book a 4 out of 5. My Booktuber Shoutout today goes out to Dog-Eared Musings. She did a review of this book on her channel as well, and I really like her review because she kind of does a thing that's similar to me, where she does a plot summary, her dislikes, her likes, and one thing she does that's super interesting is she also recommends books that are similar to this book. So if you enjoyed this style of writing and this type of genre, she recommends similar types of books for you if you want to continue reading. And as always, before I go into my full book review, if you're watching this video, I always appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also comment down below if you have read this book and let me know what you thought down below. This book, Other People's Clothes, was published last year in 2022, and the genre is thriller, and I will actually also put it in kind of like slice of life. I actually went into this book not knowing it was a thriller, so when I was reading it, I didn't really know what was going on because the first bit of the book, or first like 2/3 of the book, is very slice of life, and I'm like, why am I reading about these characters? But then because it's a thriller, it really picks up the last like 150 pages and it gets like really like crazy. So yeah, that's the genre and year. A bit about the author, Calla Henkel. So she was born in Minnesota in 1988. She's only a year older than me. However, she lives full-time now in Berlin, and she operates a bar, a performance space, and also a film studio in Berlin. She also writes, I think, in German and English, which I found really cool. And not only is she a writer, this is her debut novel, Other People's Clothes, but she's also a playwright, a director, and artist. And she also has been exhibited in lots of museums and galleries. I thought that was really cool. And I feel in some ways like the characters in this book maybe represent parts of her reality or people that she knows in Berlin, because she seems very involved in the art community. Let's get into the premise of the book. So we are told a story from the perspective of Zoe, who is the main character. She is in university, and I believe she's in university in New York, and she is the story starts with her starting her year of exchange abroad in Berlin with a fellow classmate called Haley, which they go to the same university. But there's like some backstory where Zoe's best friend that she grew up with, Ivy, was actually brutally murdered in New York, and she was slashed 14 times in the chest. And when Zoe went back to Florida for her best friend Ivy's funeral, she kind of like had a connection with Ivy's ex-boyfriend Jesse. And then Jesse and Zoe started dating for a year, but then Zoe applied to this exchange program in Berlin, where she met Haley, who's like her roommate and kind of like her buddy. And so they're both two American girls who are art students in a year abroad in Berlin. And when they attend school in Berlin, it's very different from America. They take like one class a week or one class a month. It's very chill, and like it's kind of cool because Berlin kind of becomes a character in the book. Like this story couldn't be told anywhere else in the world but just Berlin. So it's set in the year 2008, which is also important because there's a use of Facebook and social media. And so basically Zoe and Haley, they have this expression that they pick up from these travelers where a night you miss in Berlin is a night you miss in Berlin. So they make the most of it. They party, they drink a lot, they try to get to all the cool clubs, they meet all the fellow art students, they do, take drugs, party, sex. It's just like this great year. And they rent this room from this writer who's taking like time off in Vienna or Austria or something. And so they sublet this room from this writer. And through their months of partying and whatever, they kind of like hear things in the apartment, and they start to suspect that this writer Beatrice that they rented a room from is like spying on them. And that's kind of like where I'm going to stop, because that's kind of like the thriller part of it. But it's kind of cool because you meet Haley and Zoe, who are these like young 21-year-old unapologetic. They think they're main character, they're having a time of their life, and it's set against this foreign country, and it's just very like grimy and gritty, and it's just, I don't know, it was a very like interesting hook. I would say the first two thirds of the book, like I said earlier, were kind of slow because there's a lot of like just slice of life about their everyday partying, about their like internal thoughts that I felt if I was in my 20s I would really relate to, but as a woman in her mid 30s I felt it was kind of cringy. But I know for sure if I read this book in my 20s it'd be like a 5 out of 5. So that's kind of like the premise and story of the book. Common themes in this book is definitely the idea of self-identity. Haley and Zoe, they are, in their early 20s, they're year abroad, and if you ever experienced a year abroad in a foreign country when you're young, there's just so much to learn about yourself that you come to terms to or discover or never even thought about because you're kind of thrusted into this new environment, this new exposure, new ways of living, and yeah, this idea of identity and like who you are as a person and how you're able to explore yourself in a foreign country. The idea of friendship and what that looks like, what it means. As I said, like Zoe and Haley become friends because they're spending a year abroad together, but they weren't friends before. So they live together, they party together, they study together. It's a lot all at once, and how friendship and loyalty forms in a high stakes environment. And also the idea of sexuality. Zoe, the main character, kind of discovers like, is she straight? Is she bisexual? Is she lesbian? Is it fluid? And I think that's a really cool thing to talk about, especially in the book for people in the early 20s. And the last theme that I kind of noticed is the idea, like I said before, these two girls, these two young women are having a time of their life. And this is also set in 2008. And they're posting things on Facebook. And it's kind of like, are you living for yourself or living to perform and have your life be theatrical for others and have that validation, which I think is very prevalent for people who grew up in the social media timescape. What I didn't like about this book, I didn't like the two characters that I said, Zoe and Haley. They were just so like pretentious and so like indulgent and narcissist, and I almost wanted to stop reading the book, but because it was a real book club book and because I tried to have a do not finish rule, I powered through. And yeah, it was a very slow burn, very slice of life. I usually enjoy slice of life, but not these two people's lives. However, the flip side of things I did like was it was a slow burn. The last 150 pages are crazy. In my book club, there was actually a woman who didn't finish the book, but she still came out to talk about it. So we kind of caught her up on the last third of the book, and her jaw was dropped because so much happens. It's so crazy. In a way, it almost feels like Rush. She tried to put everything together, but I really enjoyed that action, and I kind of wish there's that action earlier on in the book. On Goodreads, this book on average of 3.72 out of 5. Reasons why people don't like it is they felt that some characters in the book, not the main characters, but side characters, were kind of created and forced to push a plot. Like, obviously, things in books are all plot points, but it felt like too obvious that they're there just to wrap things nicely together, and it felt very forced. People also felt it was a slow burn, it was kind of boring, and it had to really push through it. Reasons why people loved it was the flip side. Some people love a slow burn, and I love how it was worth it at the end for everything to come together very quickly. People enjoyed that a lot of the characters, even though there was a lot of characters, were fully developed characters. Even if you hated them, you understood why they were the way they were, and people really enjoyed that. And people also loved the gritty and accurate representation of Berlin. I had never been in Berlin, so I can't comment on that, but someone in my book club has been to Berlin in her mid-20s, and she said like the party lifestyle was very accurately created in this book. Why I think you should read this book? I think you should read it if you are a fan of thrillers, of young women living a fast life in a foreign city in Berlin. I think if you're into that, you're just going to gobble all of this up. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because if someone recommends a book to me, I'll always ask them how it made them feel, because a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what the book was about, but remember how it made me feel. So Other People's Clothes by Calla Henkel, it made me feel chaotic, especially the last bit. It made me reminisce about my 20s, about me when I was just an obnoxious drunk, just partying, not caring for others. I was the main character, and like everything that happens in this book, I was like, oh my god, I feel a certain way about it. I can really relate, and at the end, it's just a lot of chaos, but in a good way. It was an enjoyable read. Thank you for watching until the end of my book review for Other People's Clothes by Calla Henkel. If you want to join me next time, as I said, I've been in kind of a reading slump as life has been picking up, but I'm trying to read an easy book to kind of hopefully pick up the slump. So I'm reading Seoulmates by Susan Lee. It is a young adult romance, a friends to lover kind of scenario. So if you want to join me next time, I'll see you guys then. Bye.